Sarah sat alone in the dim, cramped motel room, glancing at her watch with mounting worry. Jack was running late. She kept looking at her phone, almost willing his name to appear, but the silence in the room was interrupted only by the faint hum of the air conditioner. Each passing minute felt heavier. She knew she needed to be home soon. Tom would be expecting her, and she didn't want him asking too many questions. Finally, the quiet was broken by a buzz, and she grabbed her phone, sure it was Jack. But when she looked down, her heart lurched. The screen read Tom. She hovered her thumb over the decline button, but she knew better than to ignore him. Taking a steadying breath, she hit answer and tried to sound relaxed. "Hey, honey. Did you need something?" "Just checking in," Tom said, his voice calm. "How's it going? Where are you?" Sarah forced a light laugh, hoping it didn't betray her nerves. "Tom, I told you I was at the theater with a few work friends." "Why are you asking such a silly question?" There was a pause, then he replied with a tone that was casual, yet hinted at something more. "Do they usually show plays in a motel?" A jolt of fear shot through her, making her hands tremble. But she forced herself to keep it together. "Oh my God, honey, are you feeling okay?" she replied, trying to sound playful. "That's a pretty strange joke." He let out a quiet chuckle on the other end. "Just messing with you, babe. It just sounded a little too quiet for a theater, that's all." Sarah's heart raced, but she managed another laugh. "I just stepped into the restroom, Tom. You're distracting me here. Let's catch up later, all right? I'll be home in a few hours." "Sure thing," he replied, his tone back to easygoing. "I'll be here. Enjoy the play." As soon as the call ended, Sarah set her phone down, her hands shaking. She took a few deep breaths, trying to calm her racing heart. Tom's joke had come a bit too close to the truth. Just a coincidence, she told herself. Just him being playful. But no matter how she tried, she couldn't fully shake the uneasy feeling that lingered. Just as she managed to steady herself, a soft knock sounded at the door. She jumped up to open it, relieved to see Jack there, slightly out of breath, his gaze darting down the hallway before he slipped inside. He gave her a quick smile, though something in his eyes seemed distracted. "You're late," she whispered, a smile breaking across her face, relief flooding through her as she finally saw him. "Sorry about that," he murmured, his voice low. "Had a couple of things to take care of, that's all." He didn't say more, but there was an intensity in his gaze that melted any questions she might have asked. He reached out, taking her hands in his, pulling her close. For a quiet moment, they simply looked at each other in the dim light. She took in the familiar details, those warm eyes, the faint stubble along his jaw, and that easy grin that made her heart skip. They spoke in hushed voices, sharing stories and small laughs, their words drifting off as they drew closer. His hand brushed her cheek, a gentle, lingering touch that sent her pulse racing. She rested her hand on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of him through his shirt. Without a word, he leaned down, and she felt his lips softly press against hers, a familiar warmth flooding her. Their kisses grew deeper, tender but carrying promises they both understood, drawing them deeper into the secluded world they'd made here. Gently, Jack led her to the bed, and they lay together, sharing smiles and soft laughter as they embraced the closeness they had missed. Wrapped up in each other, they cherished each moment, letting the world fade away as they lost themselves in the secret they shared. Jack and Sarah lay entwined in the sheets, their breathing slowly returning to normal as the calm settled over the room. Sarah glanced at her phone and let out a quiet sigh as she checked the time. Jack caught the look, raising an eyebrow with a playful smirk. "In a rush?" he asked, his voice low, a hint of teasing in his tone. Sarah managed a smile, though a trace of guilt shadowed her eyes. "I just need to get moving soon, don't want Tom to start getting suspicious." She looked away, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. Jack leaned back, closing his eyes with a grin, as if picturing something far away. "You know," he began, "we should just ditch all this and take off somewhere. Hit the coast. Sun, sand, the two of us, with no one else around." The thought lit up Sarah's eyes. "Oh, that would be perfect," she replied, her voice filled with genuine excitement. "Somewhere small, maybe one of those quiet beach towns down south, just disappear for a few days." Jack chuckled and opened his eyes, meeting her gaze. "I like how you think." They slipped into a light-hearted conversation, tossing around ideas for secret seaside getaways and chuckling at the idea of leaving it all behind. But just as they settled into their fantasy, a sharp, unexpected knock echoed through the room. Sarah's head snapped toward the door, her body tensing. Jack stiffened too, glancing at her with a cautious expression as he sat up and reached for his boxers. "Who could that be?" she whispered, barely audible. She clutched the sheet tightly around her, reaching instinctively for her clothes, her heart racing with a surge of fear. Maybe we should just ignore it." Jack tried to keep his confident smile, though there was a hint of unease in his eyes. "Relax," he said softly. "Nobody knows we're here. I'll get it." He stood up, quickly pulling on his boxers and making his way to the door. Another knock came, this one louder and more insistent. Sarah's pulse quickened as she watched him. Jack called out calmly, "All right, I'm coming. No need to pound on the door." He looked back at her, giving a quick, reassuring nod, though his jaw was set as he turned the handle, ready to face whoever was on the other side. Before you find out what happens next, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. As Jack reached for the handle, a horrible thought flashed through Sarah's mind: what if it was Tom? She scrambled under the sheet, quickly pulling her panties back on, her heart pounding as Jack opened the door. Relief washed over her when she saw it wasn't Tom, but that relief quickly turned to confusion as she took in the sight of the woman standing there. Jack froze, his face draining of color. The woman's expression was cold, fury radiating from her every feature. It was Anna. For a moment, Anna said nothing, just glared at Jack with icy contempt. Then, without warning, she swung her purse hard, smacking Jack squarely across the face. The blow made him stumble, and he threw his hands up in surrender. "Anna, wait. Calm down, I can explain." Anna's voice trembled with anger, her words laced with disgust. "You lying, cheating bastard. I knew something was off, but this is lower than I thought you could sink." Sarah, still in shock, found her voice. "What is going on here? I'll call the police if you don't." Anna turned her glare on Sarah, her eyes blazing. "Shut your mouth, you filthy girl," she spat, her voice cutting like ice. Sarah's face flushed with anger as she grabbed her bra, struggling to pull it on. "And who do you think you are, barging in here like this and throwing insults?" Jack tried to intervene, holding his hands up in a gesture of peace. "Let's just calm down, okay? I can explain everything." But Anna was far from done. "Oh, I'll tell you exactly who I am. I'm this idiot's wife. He was supposed to be working a night shift, or at least that's what he told me." Sarah's jaw dropped as she stared at Jack, hardly able to process the words. "Jack, you told me you'd been divorced for a month." Jack looked trapped, his eyes darting between the two furious women. "Sarah, listen, I can explain." "Anna, please, let's take this outside." He stammered, reaching out to guide Anna away, but the moment he touched her arm, she yanked it back, her glare fierce and unyielding. "Don't you even think about touching me with those filthy hands of yours." With a swift, practiced motion, Anna brought her knee up, landing a brutal hit right between Jack's legs. He gasped, folding over in agony. "That ought to knock some sense into those lying excuses for balls," she sneered. Jack collapsed onto the bed, groaning, his hands clutching his stomach. Seeing him squirming there, Sarah couldn't hold back any longer. "Have you lost your mind, Anna? You're completely insane!" she shouted, a mix of shock and anger in her voice. Anna's eyes narrowed as she shot back, her voice dripping with icy disdain. "Oh, honey, this isn't crazy, this is what it looks like when someone's furious." Sarah rolled her eyes, quickly pulling her dress back over her head. "Fine. I'm out of here. You two can sort out this psycho-drama yourselves." She took a step toward the door, but Anna threw out an arm, blocking her path and shoving her back with surprising strength. "And just where do you think you're going?" Anna snapped. "You think you can just slip out of bed with my husband like this is some kind of slumber party?" Sarah blinked, momentarily stunned, but her pride flared. She crossed her arms, matching Anna's glare. "Listen, you mangy cat, lay another finger on me, and you'll regret it." Anna let out a dark, mocking laugh. "Oh really? And what's your plan? Fall on your knees and beg, or maybe sob a little for sympathy?" Jack, still catching his breath, managed a weak groan from the bed. "Anna, please," he said. "Can we just talk like adults for 1 minute?" But Anna wasn't interested. She swung her purse again, this time landing a sharp smack on his shoulder. "Talk. The only talking we're doing will be in divorce court, you cheating piece of scum. I'm going to take you for every dime you have, say goodbye to your bank account, your dignity, and," she added, glancing at his rumpled boxers, "whatever shred of self-respect you thought you had." Jack winced, clutching his shoulder. "Anna, for the love of—" Sarah threw up her hands in exasperation, practically yelling, "Oh my God, you two are both completely unhinged." She raised her arms defensively and bolted for the door, eager to escape the madness. But Anna, not done yet, stepped right into her path. "You think you can just walk away from this?" Anna hissed, her eyes blazing. "Not until you get what's coming to you." And with that, she lunged, grabbing a fistful of Sarah's hair. Sarah yelped in pain, immediately retaliating by grabbing onto Anna's hair. They twisted and spun, slapping wildly, looking more like two alley cats fighting over the last scrap of food than anything else. "Oh, you want to play rough?" Sarah snapped, yanking Anna's hair harder. "Fine, sweetheart, so do I." Watching this scene unfold, Jack groaned and rushed over. "All right, ladies, that's enough. Let's calm down. Bad move." As he reached between them, trying to pull them apart, Sarah's hand shot out, aiming for Anna but smacking Jack square in the jaw instead. "Oops," she said, though she didn't look very sorry. Meanwhile, Anna, still latched onto Sarah's hair, gave a vicious tug, spinning Sarah around and swinging her hand. She missed Sarah's cheek but landed a solid smack on Jack's other jaw. He staggered back, clutching his face. "Can you two please stop knocking me out?" But the women ignored him completely, they were locked in their own private war now. Anna managed to free one hand and delivered a quick slap to Sarah's arm. "How's that for a goodbye?" "Oh, you call that a slap?" Sarah shot back, retaliating with one of her own. "You've got the wrist strength of a soggy noodle." Desperate to stop the chaos, Jack tried one last time to intervene, but as he reached out, Sarah's elbow flew back, catching him right in the stomach. He doubled over, gasping for air. Finally, Jack threw his hands up in defeat. "I'm done, all right. Good luck, ladies. Let me know when this ends." The two women carried on, slapping and grabbing, for another full minute, hair flying as they threw their best efforts into every wild swing. Eventually, they both slowed, finally letting go, each panting and glaring like they'd just survived a brawl in a hurricane. The room looked wrecked, and Jack, slumped against the wall, looked like he'd been hit by the storm too. Sarah huffed, tugging her dress back into place and smoothing her hair. "With how you treat people, it's no wonder he sneaks away every chance he gets." A few feet apart, Sarah and Anna stood glaring, looking like they'd been put through a blender on high. Clothes rumpled, hair in tangles, and both with fresh slap marks, they traded barbed insults with even more intensity. "That dress?" Anna scoffed, flicking a stray hair off her shoulder. "I've seen classier outfits on a rerun of Real Housewives." "Oh, please." Sarah rolled her eyes. "I'd wear this over that animal print disaster you're wearing. Somewhere, there's a leopard missing half its tail because of you." Jack, rubbing his sore jaw as he leaned against the wall, figured he'd make one last attempt at peace. "Can we please try to talk like rational adults?" They both turned on him in unison, firing off insults that were anything but rational. Jack sighed, his shoulders slumping. He looked like a man who had just realized he was at the base of an endless uphill battle. Meanwhile, Sarah was ready to make another break for it. She took a deep breath, steeling herself, and prepared to push past Anna if needed. But before she could take a single step, Anna fished something out of her purse, a spray can, which she wielded like a weapon. "Oh, you want to play rough?" Anna snarled. "Let's see how you like this." She aimed and sprayed a thick stream directly at Sarah's face. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut just in time, but the fumes filled the room. Staggering back, she coughed and tried to wave the cloud away, choking on the harsh, chemical smell. "What is this, nail polish remover?" she gasped, eyes stinging. The air felt thick, biting into her throat with an industrial sharpness, as if someone had turned the room into the inside of a spray paint can. Through the haze, she glimpsed Jack wrestling Anna onto the bed, trying to stop her from letting loose another round. With her head spinning and her senses reeling, Sarah saw her chance. Blinking through the fumes, she spotted the light streaming through the door and bolted, feeling her way along the wall. Behind her, Jack's voice cut through the fog. "Anna, stop biting me. For heaven's sake, ouch, that hurts." Sarah didn't dare look back. She stumbled out of the room, gulping in the fresh air outside, still coughing and blinking away the stinging fumes. The sounds of bickering and chaos faded with each step down the hallway. By the time she reached the exit, she had only one thought in mind, muttering to herself, "That's the last time I ever let anyone talk me into a cheap motel rendezvous." She finally made it to her car, only to have any relief vanish the second she saw it. Scrawled in bold black letters along the side of her car, as if from some graffiti artist, was the word trash. She stared at it, mouth open, fists clenched. "Oh, perfect," she muttered, jerking the door open and sliding into the driver's seat. As she adjusted the mirror, she froze. There, smudged across her cheek, was a streak of black paint. It hit her, the spray from Anna's can wasn't just in the air. She'd caught some of Anna's art firsthand. With an exasperated huff, Sarah grabbed a wet wipe and scrubbed at her face, only to make the paint smudge even worse. "Perfect," she muttered, tossing the useless wipe aside. "Looks like I'll need gasoline or paint thinner just to look normal again." She could feel the sting of fresh slap marks blooming on her cheeks, and her dress was practically shredded from the scuffle, but she was too furious to care. All she wanted was to get out of there, go home, and maybe figure out what to tell Tom, though at that moment, she was too mad to worry about it. Jamming the key into the ignition, she started the car, only to feel something was off right away. The car wobbled with a sickening thump-thump. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, counted to 3, then climbed out to check. Sure enough, one of her tires was completely flat, a jagged puncture gaping back at her. She spat on the ground in frustration. "Damn you, Anna. You're going to pay for this," she muttered, simmering with rage as she pulled out her phone to call a tow truck. By the time Sarah finally got home, her mind was a tangled mess of anger, bitterness, and raw disappointment. Any thoughts of Tom were long gone, she didn't care what he'd think of her torn dress or the streak of paint across her face. Her mind was fixed squarely on payback. Anna would pay for this circus, one way or another. When she stormed through the door, there was Tom, standing in the kitchen with a mug of coffee, looking at her like she was some sort of headliner in a comedy show. One glance at her smudged face, and he burst out laughing. "Well, look at you," he chuckled, a broad grin stretching across his face. "I'm torn between whether you look more like a raccoon or Zorro with that black streak." Sarah's jaw clenched as she yanked open the kitchen cabinets, frantically grabbing for anything that might help scrub the paint off. She didn't even know what she was looking for at that point, she just wanted to erase the entire day. Tom leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching her with a growing smirk. "So, rough night at the theater?" he asked, clearly fishing for details. "Oh, Sarah stammered, scrambling to come up with some excuse. "You wouldn't believe it. These, hooligans showed up right after the show. Homeless, actually. They thought we were part of the play, and then they just went nuts with spray paint. Honestly, it was like some weird interactive art thing. Very avant-garde." Tom raised an eyebrow, fighting to keep a straight face. "Avant-garde, huh? That's a new one for the downtown theater crowd." "Yeah, real, immersive stuff." Sarah forced a weak laugh, ducking her head as she kept rummaging through the cabinets. Tom wandered over to the window, took one glance outside, and nearly choked on his coffee when he saw the massive trash spray-painted across the side of her car. Well, he said, barely stifling a laugh, "You named the car, huh? Little on the rude side, don't you think?" Sarah froze, her face turning beet red. Turning back to her, Tom leaned in with a mock-serious look. "Should I be worried? You look like you just crawled out of a war zone. Want some help?" At that, Sarah snapped. "Tom, I don't have time for your jokes right now." She barked, her voice tight with frustration as she yanked out a rag, then a sponge, then anything else she could grab, muttering under her breath. Tom held up his hands, grinning as he watched her frantic pacing. He had expected some fallout, but this was more than he could have hoped for. Leaning against the doorway, Tom watched Sarah dash around, trying to scrub the paint streak off her face with one hand while fumbling into a hoodie and sweatpants with the other. "So, are you sure you were at the theater, honey?" he asked, barely concealing his grin. Sarah, clearly on the last thread of her patience, snapped back, "Of course, Tom. Isn't it obvious?" Tom tilted his head, barely holding back a chuckle. "Honestly? You look more like you went 10 rounds with some alien invader." Sarah threw him a hard glare. "Real funny, Tom. With lines like that, you might as well try stand-up." She grumbled as she yanked the hoodie on, the black paint streak still taunting her from the mirror. Ignoring him, she muttered under her breath as she rummaged through a cabinet, "Now where's the damn baseball bat?" Tom's eyebrows shot up. "Whoa, hold up. Just where are you planning on going, all suited up like that? Are you part of some underground fight club now, or maybe the Texas Rangers?" Without missing a beat, Sarah shot him a glare that could melt steel. "Stop with the jokes, Tom, and just give me your car keys." That's when Tom knew it was time to drop the act. Watching his wife, paint-smeared and muttering about a baseball bat, was like seeing a storm about to break. He sighed and stepped in front of her, his tone softening. "Sarah, honey, take a breath. How about we talk for a minute?" Sarah glared at him, still seething. "I don't have time for this, Tom. I've got to teach that two-faced, lying weasel a lesson." Tom just raised an eyebrow, keeping calm. "Sarah, maybe save your energy. You've got bigger issues to think about." Her eyes narrowed, a hint of unease creeping in. "What are you talking about?" Tom's expression grew serious. "Did you know Jack has 2 other girlfriends? And I don't even know if you're number 1 or 3 in line." Sarah froze, her mouth hanging open in shock. Without thinking, she blurted, "Wait, he's got someone else. That filthy, cheating jerk." Tom's eyes met hers with a steady gaze, and he let the silence linger for a moment. And then, just like that, it hit her. "Wait, what did I just say?" Her gaze flicked up to him, a flash of panic crossing her face. Tom let out a dry chuckle. "Oh, I know, Sarah. I know everything. You thought I hadn't noticed the sudden changes in your behavior? The endless string of lies." His voice remained calm, unwavering. "Tell me, what was it all for?" "For that Jack. The same guy who's cheating on his wife, cheating on you, and apparently has another woman on the side." Sarah's face fell, her anger dissolving as the weight of reality set in, her eyes misting with tears. "Tom, I never meant for it to go this far. I got swept up in something stupid. It was a mistake, a huge mistake." Tom's voice stayed steady, resolute. "Sarah, I know every detail. All of it, the meetings, the excuses. Did you really think I'd just sit by and forgive you for this?" She looked at him, bewildered and desperate. "Wait, you were following me? Keeping tabs on everything I did?" Tom shrugged, crossing his arms. "Not every little thing, just enough. I'm not the kind of husband who's going to stand back and let his wife carry on with another man while pretending nothing's happening." Sarah's jaw dropped as realization dawned. "So, Anna showing up was because of you?" Tom's smirk returned. "Well, while I was gathering details on your little affair with Jack, some information accidentally got leaked. These things happen." He shrugged with mock innocence, adding, "Or as you'd say, I didn't mean for this to happen. It was a mistake." He mimicked her words with a sly grin, his eyes glinting with satisfaction. Sarah threw her hands up in disbelief. "Tom, you caused this whole nightmare. You set me up." Tom remained unfazed, arms crossed. "Let's get one thing straight, Sarah. I called you and asked where you were, and you lied, saying you were at the theater with colleagues. Now, think carefully, who really set this whole thing up?" Her mouth opened, then shut, as she realized the trap he'd laid. Feeling cornered, she tried a different approach, hoping to spark some sympathy. "You put me in real danger, Tom. I'm the victim here, caught in the middle of this twisted game you decided to play." Tom's expression hardened, his voice turning cold and steady. "Sarah, we're not on stage. You can drop the act." Her eyes filled with tears, and she let out a choked sob, collapsing into a full-blown tantrum. But Tom was unmoved, arms crossed, watching her with a patience that had clearly run dry. "I loved you, Sarah. I trusted you," he continued, a hint of sadness creeping into his voice. "But you got in too deep. I don't need to hear your excuses. You traded me for a pathetic excuse of a man like Jack. Honestly, you should be grateful I wasn't harsher. Believe me, I had plenty of other options." Through her tears, Sarah screamed, "How could you do this, Tom? This is beyond cruel." Tom shook his head, his voice steady and clear. "Sarah, don't even try to make this about double standards. Tomorrow, the lawyers will be here with the divorce papers. You can save whatever defense you have for court. And remember one thing," he said, his voice laced with finality, "I didn't set you up. You walked straight into this on your own." In the end, Sarah and Tom's chaotic mess played out in court, with Anna and Jack dragged into the fallout. The court ruled that Anna would cover damages for the custom paint job she'd left on Sarah's car. Naturally, Jack, still picking up the pieces of his life, was saddled with the rest of the expenses. By the time Anna finished with him, Jack was left with an empty bank account, an empty house, and a whole lot of regrets. She made sure that he left court with little more than a parking ticket stub and a half-hearted pat on the back from his lawyer. As for Tom, he walked away with his head held high, a clean slate, and a clear conscience. While he was disappointed that Sarah hadn't turned out to be the loyal partner he'd once believed her to be, he couldn't deny feeling a quiet satisfaction in how seamlessly his plan had unfolded. He'd outsmarted every player, preserved his dignity, and avoided the worst of the drama. And so Tom walked away, pockets untouched, freedom intact, and a valuable lesson learned. A marriage ended, a new chapter begun, and, truthfully, one heck of a story to share over a beer or two.